Alright guys, hello and welcome to episode 3 of our driver career mode here with Williams. A little recap about the last race. Finishing in P14 after a pretty rough Sector 1 in Saudi Arabia, as it definitely proved difficult, especially with our Q3 DNF slamming into the wall. But coming into this weekend here in Australia, we do get a rear downforce part completed, and I believe there is some rain to come, and it won't show it. It won't tell us what the rain's going to be like for the actual race. So it looks like it's going to be mixed weather during the actual race, so we might have to kind of adjust our setup accordingly, not go with a full wet setup. But we will have to wait and see. Um, Progression is coming along pretty well. We're getting durability coming in. That way we can actually try to hold out till the 6th race, I believe. Race number 6 is Monaco. If we can make it to Imola. If we can make it to Imola without having a DNF because of our engine, that would have worked great, but it is sitting at 35% right now, so we'll have to wait and see. Usually that 65 to 75 range is where it starts giving us issues. But yeah, so really hoping that we're doing good on durability here, as the gearbox and the ICE are the ones that are wearing out the most. And like I said before, we are not in control of our R&D. As you can see, we cannot select any of them. That is purely up to the AI, as we are only a driver. So yeah, coming into Australia, finding the real pace for our car and team, as the average finish of 10th after the 2 races, 6 points, and average grid was 12. So that'll change as we go throughout the series. But yeah, let's get right into practice, and then we'll see you guys in qualifying. Alright, so here we are in qualifying in Australia. I did adjust my setup here. Below the other one. So I've been doing all my setups and time trials and testing them out. So we have a test setup for wet conditions, so mixed conditions. So I'm hoping with this additional downforce and the raised ride height, we will be able to do good in the race. So see if we can see what we can do. Yeah, looks like it'll be raining, intermittent rain towards the beginning of the race. We might start on intermediates during the race. So yeah, so qualifying will be on intermediates in the rain. So we're gonna go ahead and get out there and see what we can do with this adjusted setup. All right, yeah. So that one single run, we got caught up behind Joe Granu most of the time, and I honestly should have gone out for an additional run, but I simmed it too far forward after feeling that I was way too comfortable on these wet tires. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have a go at it with Q2 as we start in P17 with a 131.745 with the intermediate tires, and then with more rain to come for the main race. So we'll see you guys on the track for the main race.
You can hear the Australian fans roaring as they line the track here in Albert Park. Welcome to Melbourne, and the roar from the crowd can only mean one thing. It's race day. The Melbourne circuit is certainly one that needs to be taken seriously. It's a combination of slippery surfaces and difficult corners, making it a very tricky track when it comes to overtaking. Drivers find it hard to pass and will need to take full advantage of those DRS zones if they want to have any hope of breaking through. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, Stroll, Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas, Johnson, Joe, Sargent, De Vries, and Yuki Tsunoda. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And what would any Grand Prix weekend be without the one and only Natalie Pinkham? Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen?
What a quality performance. The big question, though, is how does that translate on race day? Can they hold on to that lead? And, of course, it's looking very close here today. A lot is going to be riding on those first few corners. And then the question becomes, who can manage their tyres so they're in a good position to push hard towards the end?
All right, so here we are starting in P16. Slotted up one position because of Yuki Tsunoda getting a penalty. Wondering what he had there. But with our current setup here, we do have that higher downforce, so that may hinder our top speed a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and go with our alternate strategy with the mediums to hards on lap 11 and see what it can do for us. Seeing that there is rain coming towards the end of the race, hoping that colder temperature won't really hinder our hard compound tires when it comes to it. So hopefully we can get decent positions and possibly up into the
Superb parking there, mate. Let's make sure we get the edge on the surrounding drive.
Alright, our 5 red lights are on here as we start in P16 between Bottas and Joe. Sargent close behind here in P18 as they're about 3, almost 4 wide up front. As we try to make a move on the inside, but as we skip through Sector 1, still having to go through that audio issue here as we're still sitting in P16. Magnussen and Hulkenberg holding P14 and 15 in front of us here, about a 7/10 of a gap, 8/10 now, as they are gaining and increasing that gap between us as Joe pretty much closes in behind us. And still feeling how this car can perform on the medium compared to practice, as we have Joe Granu there on the inside of the team in the mirror. We hold him off, and we did pretty good. We felt pretty good on the first lap here, as we're just now over a second behind Hulkenberg. Grand New Joe behind us in P17, and we didn't change any position here as Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell rounding out the top three, with Perez just out the top three. Verstappen out in the lead on lap 3 as Joe Grand New is able to capitalize on us making a few mistakes here at the end of Sector 3, and you can see him moving on us on the inside there now as the Haas of Hulkenberg passes. And start of lap 4, Joe Grand New taking position P16 from us as the Alpha Tauris are splitting the two Williams cars here at the back of the pack. And yeah, so later on in lap 4, we actually do catch up to him, trying to make a move on the outside, but we do end up coming in on the inside of this Sector 3 turn here and taking that position back from him as these medium tires are getting settled in very well. So we're able to respond pretty well to how these tires are acting on the track. And still a little bit of slip up here and there as we have about 4.3 seconds between us and Hulkenberg in P15. Moving on to lap 8 now. We see Leclerc back down in P17 as he had to come into the pits. I believe he came into the pits for some damage. But he did a double medium stop here. As you can see him coming up behind us now. As Tsunoda closes in, he tries to move on the outside. And here comes Leclerc closing in that second gap now. Less than a second now as Tsunoda makes a move on us on the outside. And you can see that Leclerc was easily able to catch up to us. As we kind of block him off there. Trying to stay as close as we can to Tsunoda. As we come onto the main straight, the two McLarens fighting the two Alpines. They're coming into the main straight, and here we see Leclerc making that position against us up into P16. A little bit of contact there coming into turn 1, but no warning there from the stewards as Tsunoda sitting in P15. Now moving on to lap 10, we are on board with, I believe, Pierre Gasly as fighting for position against Oscar Piastri, the other rookie, and the Red Bull of Sergio Perez coming in behind as they are in Sector 3 now. Pierre Gasly having a little bit better launch there in Sector 3 as he does have the soft tires, but as they're coming around the last few quarters, Oscar Piastri here comes off the curb, and I don't know if it was oversteer or not, but he rams into Pierre Gasly, ending both of their races. So you have the onboard here of Pierre Gasly trying to hold that inside line position, pushing Gasly out to the curb a little bit, almost touching the grass there, as he gets pushed out to the curb and he comes back in to hit the racing line, and he just smashes into Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, pulling out our first red flag.
Done all right so far, but this is a chance to take a breath. We've got another half of this race to go, and there's still a big opportunity there.
All right. So, a red flag as we're 1 lap away from coming into our pit stop. So, I don't know if that means that we're not dealing with rain, but it's wanting us to run an 8-lap soft. So, I will see what we can do here. It's about a second, maybe half a second difference. We're going to go ahead and go for the 9-lap soft and see what we can do. All right, we are back now on the track here, starting lap 13, I believe. Yes, as we make a move up to P10 now, off of a good start. The Ferrari in front of us not really having a very good start here, as we're sitting on softs in the rain. Everybody else on soft tires here, as we bump up to P9 behind Alonso now. Is letting off the gas a little bit because these soft tires in the rain and this extra downforce, I have that turning ability, but I don't necessarily have that braking ability, as we are sitting comfortably now in P9 in the points. Even though it's just 2 points, we want to be able to get up as best as we can. And even though we're coming out of Sector 1 into Sector 2, I am checking with my team to see about the weather, to see if we have to change to inters, because this track being very slick, and then me being on the softest set of tires, on these soft compound tires, is very dangerous to be out here in the rain. But they're saying that slicks are the faster option here, as we kind of close the gap a little bit on Alonso, especially coming into Sector 3 here as we a little bit late on the brakes, but not too much where we end up slamming into the back of Alonso. You see Hulkenberg up in P7 now. He was 2 or 3 positions ahead of us towards the beginning of the race. And Carlos Sainz up there in P2, and the other Ferrari of Leclerc back in P13. And Piastri and Gasly out from that red flag, like I said, as our teammate of Sargent back in P17 as we try to make a move on Ocon here. He made a pass on us earlier in lap 14. So we're trying to make that position back here as we round out the end of lap 14. And almost coming in contact with the back of the vehicle. But we do get a decent launch here on the main straight to start out lap 15. And we try to make a move on the inside. He goes to defend. We move on the outside and see if we can push him off the racing line. He cuts to the inside a little bit. We push him over the curb. And that gives us the edge there through turns 1 and 2 as we're back into P9 and try to close the gap on Alonso, which we do. The start of lap 16, we try to make a move on him, but he has way more momentum than we do, especially if I went off. You can see Alonso losing a little bit of traction and going to turn 1. And then outside of turn 2, we do the same exact thing as we're now up into P7. Hulkenberg up into P6. As we can see, if you guys noticed, that Lance Stroll was the first person to go in for intermediates on, I believe, lap 15 or so, something like that. But a lot of oversteer here as we start, and lap 17 start lap 18, and Lando Norris being able to capitalize on that and catch up to us as Ocon and Norris both pass Alonso, leaving him up in P10. Trying to fight for a position against Lando Norris here, trying to capitalize on P7 as Hamilton and Hulkenberg. If you didn't notice, Hamilton held us back a little bit there coming through the last turn into the main straight. So three-way fight for position here with Lewis Hamilton and Norris. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I don't know if Norris there was going over the curb a little bit, or if it was Hamilton, but we all kind of reacted, losing momentum and trying not to slam into each other. So Sargent making a position up at P16 down there as we're lap 18 into lap 19, and we see Verstappen coming in for intermediates. Another person coming in for intermediates towards the end of this race, as a lot of us are staying on our slick tires. You can see Norris trying to make a move on Hulkenberg. I'm losing track of names here. As we see Lando Norris having to retire. There's Hamilton and Russell there as we're side by side practically. Hamilton right there as we pass Russell in the mediums. We have a little bit more, I wouldn't say traction, but momentum here with the soft tires and that extra downforce that we went for at the beginning of qualifying. As we're now in the straight of Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas in P3 with Carlos Sainz directly in front of him and Sergio Perez about 4.5 seconds ahead of our group here on about halfway through lap 19 as we try to make a move on Sainz. Hulkenberg and myself making the move on Sainz. Hulkenberg in P2, myself in P3, the end of lap 19 and the start of lap 20. And coming into the final lap here, all we have to do is pretty much defend against Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, and I feel like we can definitely do this. And yeah, we're coming into turn 1 behind Nico Hulkenberg, and we see a flashing green light there, and that's Perez in his car. So back to the onboard here, turn 1 and 2 with Sergio Perez. It looks like he hit that curb a little bit too much power on these mediums, and then you can see us passing there in the mirror as he tries to get back on the track. And that's basically going to round out the end of this race. So with the spin from Sergio Perez in Sector 1 on the final lap, that's going to be Nico Hulkenberg, P1, myself in P2, and I believe Charles Leclerc in P3. I could be wrong. I believe it was Sainz in behind us, and Leclerc was farther down the order, but P2 finish for our third race of the season with Williams.
What a fantastic Grand Prix that was, and an excellent win for the Haas team. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
For me today, the race was the perfect blend of thrilling overtakes, but also looking after those tyres and really making the stints last just that bit longer.
There aren't many teams, as they come out onto the podium now, who could do what Haas have managed to accomplish here. It's hard to believe how competitive they've already become. Amazing victory. Weekend of motorsport action, but with more races lined up.
All right, so there you have it, a very eventful Australian Grand Prix as we end up getting on the podium for our third race with Williams, coming from P16, and that red flag with 3 DNFs. The 2 DNFs coming from Pierre Gasly and Oscar Piastri, and I thought Lando Norris was out for the race. Let's take a look here. Lando Norris, terminal damage. He had a collision with me. Then he did have a mechanical failure. So yes, he did have 3 DNFs of Pierre Gasly, Oscar Piastri. We went over that incident that caused the red flag. And then Lando Norris had a collision with me on the restart, which ended up with him having a mechanical failure. And I did see Sergio Perez. I think I could have swore that he went off and retired, but I guess he didn't. He got back out to P10. And then Max Verstappen going in for inters there towards the end, along with Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon, as well as Nick DeVries, Valtteri Bottas. Very surprising, because when we came on the restart, it was raining, and it didn't give us the... didn't suggest that we run with the inners, which I'm kind of glad we didn't, because myself and Nico Hulkenberg were able to make our moves up the grid and get onto the podium. And I am kind of glad that we set up with that a little bit additional downforce for this race. So if there's more races to come with rain like this one, we will be doing that in the future to see what kind of moves we can make, as qualifying was a pain, and I probably would have gotten into Q2 with the qualifying, but yeah, with the downforce upgrade and the higher downforce setup, we are definitely sitting decent with points, as you can see here in the standings. Let's get there first. Sitting 5th place behind Nico Hulkenberg at 24 points, tied for 5th with Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris. And then further solidifying our P7 currently in the constructor standings with 24 points, 2 points behind McLaren. So we're going to be fighting McLaren here, seems like, for some points. And Lando Norris, we were side by side with him, if you guys didn't notice with the thumbnail, and riding with slicks in the rain. And then Oscar Piastri, we were kind of surprised. I could have swore we had some situations with him, but I guess we didn't before that DNF. But without further ado, hopefully you guys enjoy the video, hopefully you guys enjoy the race. I sure did, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.